Hey Pennsylvania, it's Wine O'Clock on Wine Time PA. Join Rob, Holly, and Steve as they explore their home state of Pennsylvania and all the wonderful wineries it has to offer. Each month, they take a journey tasting the wines of PA. If you're able, pour a glass of your favorite wine and join us now for Wine Time.
Welcome to Wine Time PA. I'm one of your hosts, Holly, and today I'm joined with my co-hosts, my husband, Steve.
Hello.
And our good friend, Rob.
Hello.
For those returning listeners, welcome back, and we are glad you are still going with us on this journey. For those new, we are just three everyday wine drinkers who are on a quest exploring all the wineries offered in our home state of Pennsylvania. Why? Because we love wine, because Pennsylvania is a wine-growing region with over 350 wineries in our state, and we wanted to get some more recognition. Each month, we feature a winery that we have visited and tell you what to expect to help you plan your own visit, as well as discuss the wines that we enjoyed. This month, we are featuring Tangled Vines Winery, located in the town of New Bloomfield. If you're not familiar with where New Bloomfield is, it's about 27 miles northwest of Harrisburg, not far from the town of Newport. Also, close to a Pennsylvania state park, Little Buffalo State Park. Besides PA wines, I also love our state parks, so I can't miss an opportunity to shout out one of them during this podcast. We visited the winery at the end of May in 2025, so any information we share today is from that time frame. This was our first visit to this winery, but it had been on our radar for a little bit. We heard of them first through our good friends at Thunder Ridge, which if you haven't listened to that past episode, it's a must go listen to. But we also connected with the Tangled Vine owners, Jim and Jen, on social media. And I have to say, Jim and Jen, you're awesome. You're just so warm and welcoming, and we had a great time visiting.
Yeah, it was so much fun just talking to them about the wine, their history, how they got going, and just some of the things that they do with the wine that I know we appreciate as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, their passion for winemaking and customer service really shone during our visit there. And we got to know a little bit about them and what they've done through the years. Basically, Jim and Jen talked to us throughout our visit there. And Jim has been making wine for over 40 years, mostly, I believe, in his home. And then he transferred to a business. They've been learning about wine, visiting wineries. They've been to over 400 wineries, they said. Gee, this sounds familiar, doesn't it?
We'll open a winery eventually.
Yeah, impressive.
Yeah, I don't think we've been to 400 yet, but we're getting there.
We're trying. We'll maybe catch up someday.
They first started planting some vines in 2020 in the local area. They also used local growers to help them with specific grapes, such as the Catawba, Niagara, Diamond, Chancellor, Chamberson, and Concord. They planted some more vines not too long after our visit, in the beginning of June, I believe it was, that we saw on their social media. So congrats to them for continuing to expand and plant some more vines.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They are a PA preferred vendor, which means that all of their grapes and juice come from within the state of Pennsylvania, and we love that, and that's part of our journey here on this podcast. Jim informed us that he works a lot with the growers from other wineries in the state. He mentioned two of our favorite wines from past visits, Shade Mountain and Thunder Ridge, that he says he works with them. So shout out to Shade Mountain and Thunder Ridge for working with other wineries. So it sounds like he likes to experiment with things. He said he likes to go out and find some interesting grapes and vines and maybe things that other vineyards aren't necessarily working with, and he'll take them and he'll experiment with them. And this is great. It's led to some wonderful wines, but remember, they are just a boutique winery, meaning they produce less than about 10,000 cases a year. Jim did mention that they started off with about 400 cases of a wine, and they're getting close to 1,000 cases per year now. And they just celebrated their 2-year anniversary the weekend we were there.
Yeah, we enjoyed some good cake.
Yeah, and happy anniversary, guys. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was perfect timing on our end that, not only could we visit this wonderful blossoming winery, but it was celebrating their anniversary. But they are slowly building up their selection of wines, and what they offer is just going to take a little bit of time and, of course, some TLC. And Jim said he doesn't want to rush to production. He can produce a lot more wines a lot quicker, but he wants to make sure that those wines are of quality. And so I know I appreciate that, and I think we can all
Mm-hmm.
appreciate and respect that ability to make sure that the wines are good, not just available.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I'll always take quality over quantity.
So if you want to try one of these wines, you don't need a reservation, but note that they are only open Thursdays through Sundays with varying hours on those days. So please check their website or social media to confirm before visiting.
All right, let's talk a little about their tasting room. So when you get there, it's like basically a regular style building, nicely done with a nice big deck on the one side. They mentioned actually about adding more, maybe a porch in the future, so keep an eye out for that. Inside, it's just these really nice modern hardwood floors with a nice blue accent wall, and the rest is just lightly coloring, so it feels light and airy in there.
Mm-hmm.
They have these like nice tall ceilings with big windows and just has that big open feeling. They have a sliding barn door between the other main room. It would be a little bit more intimate. And then in the main room, they have this just beautiful big bar that you can sit up and order your drinks. They also have a bunch of just regular tables and chairs sitting around. They've got a few of those barrel tables that are very infamous at wineries. And they had mentioned about the building used to be for a hair salon, and they did a really good job converting it because I wouldn't have known. But once they said, we did notice that they repurposed some of the chairs around some of those barrel tables to give, a kickback to where they came from.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice touch. And you're right. When she said it was a hair salon, I was like, okay, you kind of looked around. You could okay, I could kind of see it in the structure that it could have been at one point. But yeah, I wouldn't have known that had they not said it. And I just want to comment, I loved the decoration around the doorway. When you look in, and you're inside and you turn around, look at the doorway, there's like this grapevine, I think some fake grapes and lights, and it's just wrapped around the entranceway. It's so beautiful. I loved it. You have to check our social for a picture.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole place just had a nice feel to it, honestly.
It really did. It was really warm and welcoming.
So in terms of wines, they had about 20, and they were broken down as follows. They had 8 whites, 6 reds, 3 rosés, and 3 fruit wines. All the wines were listed from driest to sweetest under each category. To try the wines, you can either order them by the glass or get a flight, which consists of 4 2-ounce samples. So I actually really like the 2-ounce samples, especially since we share a lot. It really gives you the ability to taste and enjoy them and get a feel for what you like without, sometimes you get the really tiny samples and it's just not enough.
Just not quite enough.
Yeah, it's enough for one, I guess, but since we're so used to sharing, it does think you're like, oh, man, I wish I had a little bit more of that.
Yeah, 2 ounces are great. It's also worth mentioning that they seem to really strive for lower residual sugar counts in their wines. And I noticed that in a bunch of their like sweeter oriented wines, they just didn't feel or drink as sweet. And we got that right from Jim. So
yeah, and I believe it's listed on their sheets too, their residual sugars on each of their wines. And yeah, I noted that they were very low as well. Even for their sweet wines, like their Concord and such, were pretty low in residual sugars.
Yeah, their ABV wasn't bad either. But, I mean, everything was reasonably priced, too. The bottles of wine ranged from like $19 to $23. And if you don't like wine, never fear. They actually have a lot to offer. They had wine tails, which are mixed drinks using wine, which sounded fun. They had regular mixed drinks that sounded awesome, like a tangled lemonade, which I totally would have tried had we not been there for wine. They also offer classic well drinks for you fans of those things that like rum and Coke or vodka and tonic. They had a really solid beer selection, a lot of craft beers from the state of Pennsylvania as well. And they even had like a few national brands like Sam Adams that they offered.
But don't forget, most of Sam Adams is brewed in Pennsylvania.
That's
so
true. Very true. So still Pennsylvania. They had some twisted teas. And then finally, if you don't want alcohol or you're the DD and you're visiting, they did have some non-alcoholic beers as well as bottled water and soda.
In terms of food, you are allowed to bring your own, but you may want to save room for what they have to offer. Of course, like most wineries, they do offer things like meat, cheese, charcuteries, crackers, that sort of thing. But they also do offer some homemade soups, chili, sliders, tacos, and a big part of their menu is these paninis, which you can create one of your own or you can order one of their specialty ones. Now, we didn't plan this ahead of time. We did plan to eat when we got there, and 3 of us did order each a different panini. I had a meatball one. It was just like meatball, cheese, and a little like sauce in there. And oh my God, that was amazing. And I don't know if it was just I was hungry that day or what, but that really hit the spot and it was really tasty. I know Steve and Holly, you each had one that looked good as well.
Yeah, I had the buffalo chicken, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that looked good.
Yeah, I had it was like a bacon chicken ranch one, and
Yeah.
that was pretty tasty too. And they came with chips too, which was nice. So
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, I tasted yours too, and it was good.
Yeah, yours had a little bit too much blue cheese for me, but blue cheese, I'm just one of those people. It's a little bit strong, but it was still a tasty sandwich.
Yeah,
Oh,
they,
yeah.
they looked good.
You can get it without blue cheese, but I like blue cheese with buffalo chicken, so.
Yep. Okay, now time for the fun part where we talk about the wines themselves. We have decided we are going to change up our format some for this part. In the past, we have each listed our top 3 favorite wines. A listener and dear friend Bonnie.
Hey, Bonnie.
Hey, Bonnie. Made a comment about us cross-pollinating more and trying new things. So instead of us each picking our top 3 and always picking a lot of the same things, like I pick the dry whites a lot, we're each now going to only pick 2 that stood out to us individually. However, we are now going to pick 2 group wines from each winery, meaning it's a wine that all 3 of us agree we would drink and we think would be a good crowd pleaser.
Yeah, especially that crowd pleaser thing. Like these are going to be wines that anybody could just pick up, buy, give as a gift, enjoy. It might not be your favorite, but you're probably going to like it. We're also going to keep this format for the next 16 episodes because if we decide to do another one of our March Madness style brackets, everything is nice and consistent.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're entering season 2 of this podcast right now. So we're going to try this out and see how it goes. And we would love your feedback, so drop us a comment. And Steve, why don't you start us off with the group picks and tell us what our number 1 group pick was?
Absolutely. I do not know how to pronounce this properly. Somebody want to help? It's
Viognier.
Like Viognier. Yeah,
It's kind of French.
yeah,
Viognier.
very French. Yeah.
It looks like Wagner or something but it's Viognier.
Viognier.
Yeah.
So this is one of their whites, and it's about halfway down their list, so probably in that semi category. This wine just had these like really nice peach and lemon notes to start, and it's interesting because you could distinctly taste both of them. There was a lot of there were some obvious citrus notes that the lemon really just imbued on, and then the peach was just there, and it played really nicely with the lemon. But the interesting bit came next, where it was just this boom watermelon. It just came out of nowhere, and the first time I drank that, I'm like, anybody else drinking melon in that? And I had to go back and get a second drink, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's not a grape that I always enjoy. It's about 50-50 with me. This one, fabulous.
Yeah, I absolutely loved this wine, and I think as each of us tried it, our eyes kind of popped, and we just knew that we all enjoyed this one. It had a nice balance of kind of that fruit forward sweetness, finishing off nicely with some acidity at the end.
Yep, just the right amount of acidity.
It was a perfect amount of acidity. I thought it was just a nice and versatile white wine. Surely a crowd pleaser, and anyone especially that loves white wines, this is one you must try.
Yeah, I think most people would like this, and I loved it as well. I mean, I agree with Steve. I got the lemon and the peach and a little bit
Watermelon.
That watermelon came to me in the finish. It was subtle, but it was there, and I really liked it. I think I got a little creaminess to it when I was trying it, but honestly, it was my favorite wine the entire day. If we were doing this the old way, it would have been my number 1 pick because it was that great.
I think we would have been fighting over the number 1 pick on that.
Yeah, it was my highest rated wine of the day too. It was so good, and it was so unique.
Yeah, it was really good. All right. So, Rob, why don't you tell us what our number 2 group pick was of the day?
All right. This one is called the Garnet. It was listed number 5 of 6 in their red list. They said it's a blend of the Treminette, Blaufränkisch, and Deschanel grapes, which is quite the unique combination of grapes.
Yeah,
out
it
there.
really is.
Yeah.
And 2 of those grapes are ones that we don't always necessarily come across often on our travels.
No, the Blaufränkisch and the Deschanel are 2 generally red grapes, or they make red wines, that is. But then it blends with this white grape with the Treminette. So it drank a little sweeter than a dry wine. It was maybe more like a semi-dry. I got hints of cherry. It was just a beautiful bright red coloring and just a really wonderful red blend. So for the red listeners out there, it's the Garnet.
Yeah, to me, it was funny. I sort of had notes where when I first took a drink, it reminded me of Moscato. It didn't exactly taste like it, but just had it reminded me of it subtly. But it ended very similar to a Pinot Noir. It had a little bit of pepper. It was just a really interesting blend of the different white and red styles. It was also a little bit lighter bodied, so it was really easy to drink.
Yeah, it really was. And I noted as well the beautiful color. I mean, there was even sometimes in the light, you'd almost get like a little pink in there, which was just interesting because it's clearly a red, but it had a really nice fruit and floral smell. I really love the floral notes in this. I think it had a beautiful finish, and I think this would just pair well with a variety of dishes. Summer coming, I don't know. Burgers, cookout, I don't know.
Yeah, burger, steaks.
I can see it going really well. And again, I think because it's a little bit of a semi-wine, a little bit leaning a little bit sweeter, but not too sweet or anything like that, that a lot of people would appreciate this. Okay, so let's go back to our personal picks. So instead of 3, we're going to do 2. So I'll kick us off. And my number 2 recommendation was their Chardonnay. And, we usually don't give Chardonnays too much here, but I think we've been working them in every so often. But this Chardonnay was just wonderful. It had a really nice light yellow color. It had a little bit of nut in the flavor, and I even got a little bit of flour in there, like that bread stuff. But it also had some beautiful citrus notes. It had a nice acidity, and honestly, when I first sipped this, I wouldn't have known it was a Chardonnay just by the initial sip, because usually Chardonnays, I think of like the oak and the bread and the butter, and but this was it was just beautiful. I really loved it.
Yeah, I really like this too. I actually got a bunch of pineapple up front, which is a little unusual for a Chardonnay, but it worked really well. And yeah, a lot of butter in the finish with a little bit of nut. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was different.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, I'm not a big Chardonnay fan, but if you put a glass of that in front of me, I could easily drink that. It was a decent Chardonnay, so good pick, Holly. For my number 2 pick, though, I'm going to go kind of the other end of the spectrum and go with their strawberry rosé.
Choice.
Now, this just had a wonderful strawberry smell to it. It tasted sweet, but again, as we mentioned earlier, it didn't have a lot of residual sugars, so it wasn't super sweet. I got tastes like strawberry jam or jelly. I think one of you, Steve, maybe even said like strawberry nerds candy.
Yeah, it was some kind of strawberry candy, but it was very, I don't know, it was very strawberry-ish and very delicious.
Now, I forgot to ask them what grape they made this from, so my apologies for it, but it was just wonderful. It would be good as a dessert wine or just, on your own, having a nice glass. And, I do like strawberry flavorings, especially in wine, so this would be a good one for those who maybe like something a little sweeter and maybe more of a dessert wine.
Yeah, I really like this one as well. And you guys are talking about candy. To me, I instantly thought of those strawberry hard candies, the ones that are like in the wrappers that look like strawberries.
Oh, the grandma strawberry bars.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
The second I tasted that, that's instantly what my mind went to. Like, it was like a nostalgia childhood moment of those strawberry candies. And that's what it tasted like to me. And I just really liked it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I love those candies.
Yeah, they're really good.
All right, so for my number 2 pick, I'm going right in my normal lane, and it's with their Concord. So this one's much less sweet than most. I forget. He told us what the residual sugar was, and I just don't remember.
It was like 9, I think.
I think it was lower than that.
Yeah, it was really low.
I remember thinking, man, that's really low for a Concord, because most of the time I think Concord is like 4 to 16, and I think this one was,
It was like 4. It was in the single digits, for sure.
Yeah, it was also, it was less grapey, so it didn't have that, like, punch of Concord flavor, but it still tasted like Concord. It was just, probably because of that lower sugar content, you weren't getting so much of the Concord flavor because of the lack of sugar. It also had just this very unique finish that just kind of rounded it out. I love when these traditionally sweeter wines have a less sweet variant that kind of preserves that distinctive flavor. And this was one. I like this. This is a good Concord.
Yeah, this was definitely a great Concord. And I teased about putting it on my list. And I don't lean toward the sweeter wines all that often. I say that having picked a sweet wine actually 2 minutes ago. But but their Concord was really good. And it could have easily probably even been a crowd pleaser pick for us because it'd be one that a lot of people could enjoy.
Yeah, I could see a lot of people enjoying this. It just being less sweet. Yeah. And that's the thing. I love the flavor of the Concord grape.
Me too.
But a lot of them out there are very sweet. And this I don't have that complaint with this one.
Yeah, and it didn't really sit heavy in your stomach either.
No, it was kind of
lighter.
Yeah, medium light maybe.
Yeah.
So I'll start us off with our number 1 picks. And I'm going to go with the Treminette. Mm-hmm. So this is also one that I'm kind of hit or miss with. There are places where I adore it, and there are places where I just don't care. This one just had this amazing aroma to start. It had that very traditional Treminette aroma, but just really amped up. I just really like that. It was a touch sweet in the start, and it kept with some of those wonderful Treminette floral flavors. It was also like a bit acidity in the finish that really tamed down any sweetness that was coming along for the ride. And that was just really nice. It was just nice and smooth and really well balanced flavors.
Yeah, I know I'm in this Treminette that, we talk about Treminettes like they can be floral or they can be citrusy, and there's a little bit in there. And this one I think was very heavy floral, especially in the smell and the taste. But I do remember we were tasting it, and there was a little bit we were kind of arguing, was it tangerine or nectarine in the middle that we were tasting in there? Because there was a hint of citrus in it. And I think you and I went back and forth on was it tangerine or nectarine, but it was still, that was nice. But it was a decent Treminette.
Yeah, that bit of orange style. Yeah, I love that. Yep. That's probably why I like this so much.
Yeah, I mean, I like my Treminettes a little more on the citrusy side than the floral side, but it was still a quality Treminette and good.
Yep. All right, so my number one pick is, brace yourself, blueberry.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever picked a fruit wine. I'm trying to remember.
I don't know. We haven't picked too many overall.
Yeah, we don't. So I've said before, and I may be repeating myself, blueberries, love them to eat, hate them to drink. I'm just not a fan of them in wine, especially in wine. Usually they're too sweet. The blueberry gets like an odd taste when it's fermented and, kind of brings back bad memories like the cherry does of cough syrup and stuff. But this one, oh my God. First, it smells like a freshly baked blueberry muffin. And it tastes like one too. And it's not overly sweet. It's just this wonderful like blueberry muffin, like breakfast or brunch in a glass. It's just wonderful. And again, I advocate for the brunch wines. It should be a brunch wine. Great dessert wine too. It's just amazing. I was super impressed by this wine, and it impressed me so much I had to pick it to recommend it because it was so unique.
Yeah, I agree. I also don't typically like blueberry wines. I don't know what it is. I adore blueberries, but there's just something. It's kind of the same thing with honey. I don't really care for meads, but I love honey. And I think it's just something in the process that just changes it for me. This one was incredible. I drank this and I was just stunned. It was distinctly blueberry muffin. Like the blueberries were always there, and it felt like a big plump blueberry, but then there was this muffin bit, and it was just, how do you even do that?
It blew my mind.
It was funny because when we were finishing up too, I remember a couple people came in and they asked us what we should try, and I'm like, I don't know if you like the sweeter ones, so you should try the blueberry. It's so interesting. And he did, and on the way out, he's like, yeah, that was a really good choice.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you, Holly. Like, I'm not a big blueberry fan. But this wine, oh my goodness, it was incredible. I almost bought a bottle of it. I was like...
I think we did.
I think we did.
I think you did. I almost did, and I rarely buy like fruit wines other than like apple or watermelon. But yeah, we're not exaggerating. It tasted like a blueberry muffin. That's exactly what I felt like I was drinking, was a liquid blueberry muffin.
Even if you don't like sweet wines at all, you should at least get a sample of this because it
was so good.
Yeah. Especially if you like blueberry muffins. Seriously, you're going to be impressed by that. And Rob, you can come over when we drink the wine and share it with us.
Yeah.
Hey, that's less wine for us. Correct.
Yeah, we never share wine. So. All right, I think I'm rounding out our number one picks. And I'm going to go with the Zweigelt.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
Now... this is one I've never heard of before. It's a dry red, no surprise for me, so no wonder I liked it. I did a little research. The Zweigelt grape is basically a Austrian and French hybrid grape. It's kind of made from the St. Laurent and the Blaufränkisch, which we've already mentioned earlier in this episode. It was just a unique dry red. Again, I never really heard of this wine, so I was interested in trying it. It had a beautiful, like, dark purplish to red coloring in there. I did note some sweetness in the start, maybe some, like, plum or cherry in there. And then, you had that classic dry finish with the pepperiness in there. Had some nice tannins in the finish. Wasn't overwhelming, but it was just kind of just the right amount there. And, there was just a lot going for this wine. And if you're like me and like dry reds, this is the one to try.
Yeah, it was interesting. I will admit that. I did put in my notes that it had some nice tannins, and I like the acidity in it, which is not something I comment too much on red wines. I usually think of that.
Tannins versus the acidity.
But, I mean, acidity obviously exists in red wines. But, yeah, it was interesting. It piqued my interest.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this, too. It was different. And I think we've seen it before somewhere. I don't remember where. But I definitely have my notes. I say cherry dominant. So I really got the cherry in that. And that's probably where you get the sweetness because
I think it was a red cherry, not a dark cherry.
Yeah, it didn't drink sweet, but I think you got some of that fruit forward and it kind of evoked some sweetness on your tongue. Yeah. And then I also said, had some low pepper in the finish and just a really balanced and easy drinking wine.
Yeah.
All right. Honorable mentions. Steve, do you have any?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the pink Catawba, which I have said repeatedly I really enjoy. This one I'm going to attach a little asterisk, a little caveat to it. This year, 2025, Jim told us the batch came out significantly more tart than usual, and I just loved that. It was so tart. I immediately got it and got a bottle. It's in the basement. I can't wait to drink it. So if you like tartness as much as I do, get there this year and give this one a shot because I'm guessing next year's vintage isn't going to be so tart.
Yeah, I'm not a big tart fan like you are, but there was something special about the tartness in that pink Catawba, and I really liked it too.
Yeah, it wasn't super sweet either, which I liked.
No, it was a good balance in there. For my honorable mention, I'll shout out the Diamond. I'm not always a fan of the Diamond wines, though I don't shy away from them. But this one I thought was just pretty unique. It kind of had that sweetness of like a Concord or Niagara, but I noted this puckering quality that just made you want to go back for more. It's kind of like, on a hot summer day, you're drinking a nice glass of lemonade and you just want to keep drinking more of it. That's kind of what I got in this Diamond, and I just really enjoyed that. So, the Diamond.
Yeah, I have notes that say it was distinctly diamond, but lighter bodied and a touch sweet.
Yeah.
So I liked it. It was really good. It definitely evoked a good traditional diamond kind of feel, but I did like the lighter bodiedness of it.
Yeah. It was a pretty good diamond. I put a note that it reminded me of like that grape on the vine smell. I love it when wine smell like that. I come across it every so often. I love that smell. So my honorable mention, actually I'm going to go, is with the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Good pick.
Yeah, and it's actually been a while since I found one that stood out to me. I think, liked Cab Sauv for years, and it became one of those wines that just was like, it's Cab Sauv. You know what I mean? It's kind of consistent, the same. But this one really stood out. It was lighter bodied. It had a lot of nice fruit with it, but with some hints of spice in the finish. I noted a little bit of raisin, low tannins, and actually I think this was one we had actually considered as one of our crowd pleaser wines because we all enjoyed it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was different. Cab Sauv I tend to enjoy because it's blended with other wines to make a nice red blend, but this one really stands out on its own, and you do get some distinctive raisin flavors, and I also remember just some other kind of red fruit maybe in the finish with that pepper, maybe like a raspberry. Mm-hmm. It's just nice.
Yeah, if we were doing our old format of 3 picks, this would have been my 3rd pick. I rated it that well. And yeah, like you, Steve, I kind of like my Cab Sauvs more blended than on their own. But when you find one that is good on its own, this is an example of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think definitely if you're also looking for another good crowd pleaser, consider the Cab Sauv.
All right. Well, they do. We did mention to them about some of their best-selling wines that they have. And those are the Diamond, the Garnet, Black Cherry, which we didn't mention, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, it really was good black cherry flavor. It was very distinctive. It was like you were drinking the fruit.
I said, again, earlier, I talked about cherry, but I remember that day I actually didn't mind that. I mentioned Black Forest Cake is what it put me in the mind of when I drank it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their blueberry.
Which is not a surprise at all. That was so good.
And their strawberry was our bestsellers.
All right, does anybody have any thoughts here before we close out? I mean, I know we've kind of talked about this was just an enjoyable experience overall.
Yeah, just maybe a thanks again to the owners. It was a really fun and interesting experience.
And just be on the lookout that they are going to be releasing new wines maybe later in the fall. I know they said they were working on like a Merlot and some other wines that they were getting ready to bottle, but they just hadn't gotten to it yet. So might be a small selection now, but they are growing with their selection. So check them out.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting too. We kind of talked about too the way their wines were done too. Like they were just. I didn't feel so. Sometimes I feel blah when we leave one of these tastings because we've tried a lot of wines and they feel kind of heavy in your stomach.
When you try like 40 wines in a couple of hours.
I felt great leaving here. Yeah. Like they also. I think you had mentioned earlier too, Rob, about them settling nice in your stomach. I felt that they all did that. So.
Yeah, and I think they were all just a touch lower on the ABV than you'd normally find, which I actually really like. The alcohol is one of the parts of the wine that I don't exactly care for as much, but it's obviously a necessity in the flavors, and I just think theirs was a good amount, and it really lent to drinking a little bit more and feeling good.
Yep. To me, Tangled Vines feels like one of those wineries that is up and coming. Being newer, they're not one of the big names you hear of when you talk about PA wines, but I think they're heading that direction. So if you're looking for a new winery to check out, maybe one to impress your friends and family ahead of the trend, I would say consider this one. Not only do they have a nice setting with great wines, they are incredibly warm and welcoming. I kept thinking of the TV show Cheers, as it seemed like they knew every single person who walked through the door that day and welcomed them. It was like they were part of their family, and I felt like we were part of the family the day that we visited. And I know we're going to return someday. So for more information, check out their website, tangledvineswinery.com, or find them on Facebook or Instagram. And while you're out on social media, please like and subscribe to Wine Time PA if you haven't yet. We'd also love it if you would leave us a review or share this podcast with others. Until next month, cheers!
Thanks for listening to Wine Time PA with your host Rob, Holly, and Steve. We hope you enjoyed our take on Pennsylvania wineries and all that they have to offer. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast. Also, be sure to follow them on social media for updates and news. Remember, when it comes to wine, drink what you love.